Do you want people to actually understand your lyrics when you scream? Can you get the distortion but struggle the moment you try to form words? Does your scream cut in and out, or does your voice crack when you try to say something? Maybe even feel some discomfort when it happens. If so, all of that's completely normal. Most people hit this exact wall when they're learning to scream. So I'm going to give you some tips so that you could scream words more clearly. So, tip number one, keep your throat compressed no matter what. So, for most types of screams, distortion happens because your vocal cords are pressing together and sputtering. And the moment that process gets interrupted, the distortion disappears. A lot of people lose their distortion the second they try to say actual words. And the reason is that the way they pronounce certain vowels and consonants causes their throat to open up. So, the rule is simple: no matter what shape your mouth is making, keep the back of your throat compressed and closed at all times.
I am closed, even when I'm going low. I'm still closed. ABC.
Versus what a lot of people do is they go,
I'm closed at first, but I'm gonna open. ABC.
okay, so let's get into tip number two. I want you to underpronounce tricky words at first. So this is a really practical tip. If there's a word that keeps tripping you up whenever you try to scream it, let's say, for example, you're trying to scream the word Mississippi. One thing you can do is soften your pronunciation and ease up on the consonants. See, harsh consonants like p, k, s, cut off your airflow. And if you don't have full control yet, that stoppage can kill your scream entirely. But by softening things up, ba, ka, za, then you reduce that risk. Then over time, as you get more comfortable with the softer version, you can start pushing the pronunciation harder and harsher until it sounds the way you want. So, for example, if I was going to do this with Mississippi, maybe I would try to say it like this. And then over time, I'd pronounce it harsher and harsher as I got more and more comfortable with it.
Mississippi, 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 Mississippi.
Okay, now let's get on to tip number three. Do one continuous scream, not multiple separate ones. So, okay, this is a big one. So let's say, for example, if you're screaming something like ABC, a lot of people instinctively break that into three separate screams.
A, B, C.
Where they kind of take a breath in between.
A, B, C.
Or maybe they don't take a breath. They just kind of section them off as separate.
A, B, C.
But that makes everything so much harder because it's kind of like you have to catch the scream three separate times. It's way easier, on the other hand, to let out one long continuous scream, and then just move your mouth to form the words as you go. That way, you only have to catch it once, and then you just can ride that wave. And then the words flow through the distortion instead of stopping and starting it. So for example, if I was going to say ABC, so instead of going
A, B, C,
you'd go
ABC.
One scream instead of three. So the next tip is kind of more just something that I want you to remember. So clear words and articulation is actually optional. So here's something that might take pressure off. In this style of music, not pronouncing words clearly is completely valid. Sometimes it actually makes things sound more brutal, and that's totally a legitimate creative choice. I've seen bands write lyrics that are genuinely deep and moving and perform them so aggressively that you can barely make out a single word, and they'll sound like this. Or and in this style, it totally works. So give yourself permission to let go of conventional pronunciation if it's getting in the way of the sound you are going for. Okay, so the next tip is to understand the trade-off. So the more extreme you try and push your vocals higher or lower, then the harder clarity gets. So generally speaking, the more extreme you go, whether that's super high, super low, or maximum brutality, the harder it gets to pronounce things in a conventional way. And there's a real trade-off here. For example, if I was going to say ABC super high, I would sound like this. Or super low. Or if I wanted to make it sound super brutal. That's way harder to understand compared to a mid-range scream. ABC. So if being understood is a priority for you, mid-range screams are going to be your best friend. That's when you're going to have the most control over your words without sacrificing too much of the tone. So the next tip is kind of more of like a workaround strategy for what I just brought up. So if you want to find a middle ground where you're sounding, for example, as brutal or as high or as low as possible while still being somewhat understandable, here's a trick I really like. Pronounce the consonants as clearly as you can, but replace all the vowels with whatever extreme sound you're going for. You see, consonants are what your brain uses to decode words, so leaning into those while letting the vowels go full brutal gives you the best of both worlds. So for example, if I was going to do a high fry scream, all of my vowels would be ah! And then whenever I say words, I would really pronounce the consonants, but then just for the vowels, I'd go back to that ah space. So ABC would turn into ABC. Same thing with lows. If I wanted to do R to go low, I would replace all my vowels with that, and then just pronounce the consonants harshly. Same thing with this. ABC. Okay, so if you want to go deeper into learning fry screams, false chords, hybrids, going brutal, whatever have you, I made a video that goes way deeper into this stuff as well as the anatomy of screaming, which you can get for free by clicking the link in the description. As a bonus, if you want to learn how to scream as quickly as possible, then I also offer free one-on-one consultations where you can hop on and see if you'd be a good fit for coaching. And that is the absolute quickest way to get results. But once again, that's completely up. So if that interests you, click the link in the description and I will see you inside. Once again, that's all free. Peace out.